Sometimes history shifts its weight, and when it does, the balance of the world changes forever. You feel that shift in the air, that change in the tone of the conversation. That's not just noise, that's power moving, that's balance tilting. And the West, after centuries of sitting comfortably in the driver's seat, is starting to feel the rumble beneath them. Because India's rise isn't a flicker, not a phase. It's deliberate, it's deep, and it's redefining what global power looks like. For a long time, the story of the world was told from one side. The West wrote the script, directed the action, and handed out the roles. Everyone else played their part, supporting roles, background characters, extras in someone else's vision of the future. But now India is stepping into the frame, not as a follower, not as a carbon copy, but as a force, a nation, with its own voice, its own values, and its own vision. You see it in the boardrooms of Bengaluru, where tech minds are building platforms that power half the world's software. You see it in ISRO's mission control, where scientists put a lander on the moon's south pole on a budget smaller than a Hollywood blockbuster. You see it in rural India, where digital payment systems reach the last mile with a kind of efficiency even developed countries envy. This isn't just growth. This is transformation. When the global economy struggled in 2024, when even the giants of Silicon Valley were laying off thousands, India grew at over 7.5% GDP. The IMF called it the brightest spot in the global economy. But let's call it what it really is, a challenge. Not to the people, not to peace, but to the system, the old system. A system where the rules were set without us in the room, where decisions were made in conferences we weren't invited to. This international order, this so-called rules-based system, was shaped at a time when much of the world, including India, was under colonial rule. It wasn't made with our voices in the room. It wasn't designed for our benefit. Visual, Indian startups, unicorn companies, manufacturing facilities. And now, as India rises, it's not just entering the game, it's rewriting the playbook. And that makes people nervous. Because when you've had power for so long, someone else gaining it can feel like losing it. India has one of the world's fastest growing startup ecosystems. It's producing unicorns faster than some Western economies. It's becoming a manufacturing alternative to China, not just because of low costs, but because of policy, innovation, and strategic alignment. For too long, the world was told in a single voice, one tone, one lens, one version of truth, carefully curated and broadcast from the same studios, boardrooms, and academic halls of the West. But that era is fading, because India is no longer waiting for someone else to tell its story. It's telling it for itself, loudly, clearly, proudly. From RRR winning international acclaim, to Indian voices dominating global tech spaces, to a prime minister standing confidently beside world leaders and speaking not just for one country, but for an entire block of rising nations. This is a narrative shift with teeth, and it makes the old gatekeepers uneasy because they no longer control the spotlight. And maybe they never really did. Maybe they just convinced the world they did. We're a nation of 1.4 billion, but more importantly, a nation with 650 million youth under 25. This is not a time bomb, it's a rocket engine. 25-year-olds in India are building apps, launching startups, solving for AI, building robots, and teaching the world how to dream. Again, here's the part that really stings for the old order. India isn't rising in the West's image. It's not asking for validation. It's not following a borrowed blueprint. It's rising as itself, complex, messy, vibrant, unapologetically Indian. Rooted in its civilization, propelled by its youth, and shaped by its own contradictions. Whether it's Chandrayaan landing on the moon's southern pole or India's G20 presidency asserting global priorities from a distinctly Indian perspective, the message is clear. We are not here to imitate. We are here to contribute and to lead in our own language, in our own way. That kind of rise, that authentic rise, is harder to predict, harder to contain, and much harder to co-opt. And when others see that blueprint working, they start asking, why not us? This is new India, unapologetic, spiritual, scientific, and sovereign. They're wearing hoodies in the morning and chanting Jai Shri Ram in the evening. This cultural confidence can't be colonized. It can't be bought or bullied. The world map isn't just a piece of paper with borders. It's a story of who stands, where, who shakes hands with whom, and who gets left out of the conversation. And right now, that map is being redrawn. India can engage in military exercises with the U.S., buy oil from Russia, trade with Europe, and lead forums with the global South, all in the same month. That kind of diplomatic flexibility confuses the old powers, because it's not supposed to work that way. But it does, and it sends a clear message. India doesn't belong to anyone's axis. It belongs to itself. You can't mute a billion people. Not anymore. For decades, the world's largest democracy sat on the sidelines of global influence, present but rarely heard. But that silence is gone now. India is showing up in global forums, not as a listener, but as a negotiator, as a leader. When India speaks, it's not just speaking for itself. It's speaking as a voice of the global South, for nations long ignored, for cultures long patronized. So yes, the West is panicking. But it's not because India is rising, it's because India is rising differently. Not in imitation, but in assertion. Not to fit in, but to stand out. Visual. Indian flag waving. Young Indians looking confidently toward the future. And maybe that's the point. It's not just about taking a seat at the table. It's about building your own table on your own terms. When India speaks now, the room listens. Not because it has the most wealth or the most weapons, but because it has the weight of 1 billion people behind every word. People who have waited long enough to be seen, to be heard, and now are finally ready to lead.